On May 25th, George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man, was murdered when Derek Chauvin knelt on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds while the world watched in horror. And since then, there have been all races banding together with black Americans to say no more. No more. So on today's show, I have two Black Lives allies that will be giving their perspective and talking about what's next in this current situation. This is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. Welcome to my world. Stay tuned. This is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. I am your host for Let's Talk About It. So welcome to my world. We're getting ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Oh my God, thank you guys for joining me. It has been interesting, put it like that. But before we get started, tell the audience who you are, and we start with Lauren.
My name is Lauren Wall. I am an actress here in Atlanta. I live in Alpharetta, but I work in theater and film in the area, as does my husband. I moved here in about 2013, but I was born in Marietta. But I grew up the majority of my life in New Jersey, very close to New York City.
Okay. And Mr. Josh, who are you?
Who am I? So this is Josh Prokes. You may know me by my WWE stage name, Triple H, sometimes Stone Cold. No, so actually, I've been living in Atlanta, Georgia now since early 2002. I actually spent a lot of time growing up in Florida, mainly Central Florida and the South Florida, Miami-Dade area. But I was born in Chicago, lived there for my younger years, but called the South home. And I am a regional sales director for a tech startup company based in California.
Awesome. So now everybody knows who you are, and we can get this party started. So both of you guys really poured out your hearts on social media. And Lauren, I'm going to start with you. Being that you grew up in an art community, you made a statement on there that you really didn't see racism. Tell me more about how you grew up in your race relations.
Of course. So, yeah, it was really emotional for me to post that because I don't know if I was blind to it and didn't see when it was happening. But growing up in New Jersey, I grew up in a predominantly Black school. So it was normal for me. You know, they were my friends just like my white friends. And I did theater in and out of the city. And I always was with these people, and they were my friends and they were my family. So it really wasn't until I was an adult and I was living in the South that I really started to see how privileged I was and really the things that were happening, even in the theater community. So with everything happening now, I really wanted to show, my friends, my colleagues, my family, that, we need to do better. We need to speak up. We need to open our eyes a little bit more, because growing up very privileged, I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. And, it's just important to me, with all the people in my life that I care about very much that are, scared and hurting right now, to be an ally and do whatever I can, to help.
And it's definitely appreciated. Definitely appreciated, because more is going to take all of us to make this change. And Josh, you grew up in Dade County, so you grew up around more multicultural. Talk about how you grew up as far as it relates to racial interaction.
Yeah, sure thing. So like I said, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and my family is from the South Side. We were one of a few, I'd probably say between 10 or 12 white families that grew up in a very dominantly or predominantly African American and Latino neighborhoods. The thing that we all had in common is we were pretty much all poor. And it's funny when I say I grew up around other white families. We had a lot of different ethnicities. We had folks who were from Croatia, folks who were from the Czech Republic, folks that were from oh gosh, where was the other family from? You know, the whole mix, Italians, Irish. So you know, you got your general white folk, but then you've got a bunch of different sub flavors of white folk. And so you know, when I was growing up, my experience culturally, I think, was a lot different than most folks. Um, I went around, ran around the neighborhoods. My buddies were my buddies, and for me, um, I wouldn't say I was colorblind. I've always noticed color, and I think it's beautiful. I think the different shades of human beings, there's something unique and special to it, and it was not. It wasn't necessarily something that I saw as uh, a difference necessarily in a negative way. It was, wow, you know, man, I wish I could wear my hair like that. I don't got hair like that. I like the way you got that cut and edge. That's pretty stylish, man. Or the fashion, or some of the music, or the food that I'd get to sample and experience when we'd have block parties. And then when my family relocated, when we moved to Florida, it was kind of the same thing. It was very natural for me. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, again, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ethnicities as a young man. I'm also very thankful to my parents because one of the things that I was told at an early age was, your best friends, the people that you love, that you hang with, they're going to come in all shapes and sizes and colors and flavors. This is what I really need you to understand is the character of an individual. And pardon my French, but my dad used to have a saying: everybody has an equal opportunity to be your best friend. And in the same way, they have the equal opportunity to be an asshole. And unfortunately, you kind of have those people that just for whatever reason their character is bent towards that. And I've seen it all. So for me, I've always been very comfortable around other, I say it like this: human beings that look different from me. But for me, it's always about seeking out, uh, the depth of their character and more so the color of their soul.
I like that. I like that. So, with recent events with George Floyd, what were your guys' thoughts when you saw this horrific, just straight murder of this man on the street? What were your initial thoughts?
Lauren, I'm going to defer to you as a gentleman, and because I can talk for a minute, but I'm going to let you go first if you would be so kind, and then I'll put in my 2 cents.
Of course. I was horrified. I mean, I we've seen it happen too many times, but just watching that video and hearing him call out for his mom, and then just what really hit me personally was seeing the picture that we've seen everywhere now of George Floyd. He looks like one of my best friends, who's just a big black man, and he's the biggest teddy bear in the entire world. But to me, I went, that could be him next. He could be walking down the street in Atlanta and be seen the wrong way. And like, it's not okay. I was just angry. And it's happened too many times for us to start speaking out and coming forward as white allies. So I was disappointed in myself also that, it took this long for us to be this outraged, and that it took this long for the cops to be held accountable. It took protests in all 50 states and multiple countries for them finally to be held accountable for what they did. And now, not trying not to veer from the subject, but today's Breonna Taylor's birthday, and those cops are still not being held accountable. And I just kept thinking, like how is this happening? And that's when I really realized emotionally my own privilege is, I was asking, how is it happening? But it's been happening in our country for 100 years, more than that. Like the civil rights movement was not that long ago when you really think about it. The first black student to ever, Ruby Bridges, to ever be in a white school, she's only 65 years old. Like, how have we not made more progress? Like, how has it come to this again? And I'm glad it has, because it needs to, but it just makes me angry. It makes me sick to my stomach to see that, and to see that man crying out for help, and just no one doing anything, and just watching him just die. And it's just horrific. And it just made me realize that finally we need to do something. We need to speak out. We cannot be silent anymore. We can't let racism happen and be silent watching it happen, because that's happened for too long. I've, hearing other white people make racist comments and not speaking up for fear of, them getting mad at us or getting into a fight, or that person not liking me, or that teacher not liking me, whoever it is, like, don't care anymore. I don't care who I upset. I don't care if it's a family member. I don't care if they never talk to me again. Black lives matter. And that's the only thing that matters right now.
Yes, I appreciate that.
I would definitely second that emotion, particularly around the rage. Um, I was aware of racism at an early age because I remember going into a corner store to get some nickel gum. Back in the day, if you had 25 cents, you could make out like a bandit going to like your local corner store, getting Bazooka Joe or Atomic Fireballs, or Pixie Sticks and things like that. And I remember a couple of my buddies, they had went in before me. I had to run back home, bust open the piggy bank to get something. I remember coming in, and I remember the way the shop owner was behaving to him, and it wasn't a very direct way. It was kind of the overt tone. I don't know what it was. I just picked up on the energy when I walked in, and it's almost like the way this guy was watching him or looking at him or treating him or talking to him. His mannerisms were that of almost like the hall monitor, somebody like, it's my job to kind of oversee that people are doing what they're doing. It was not a welcome environment.
Mm-hmm.
But then, funny enough, I come to walk in, here I am. I mean, and again, this is the '80s, right? And I had hair at that time, and I had I think the white boy haircut that was going on right then was the mullet. You had that whole business in the front, party in the back thing going on. And immediately when I went up to them, I'm like, "Hey, fellas, what you get? What we got? What we got?" Immediately you could feel the emotional energy in the store change. And someone's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. They got a token with him. Everything, okay, yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. And that really bothered me. I must have been probably about 9 or 10 years old when that happened, but I never forgot it because I could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to put to words. But I've had a lot of folks reach out to me on Facebook. Some of my friends have reached out, and they seem like in one way they're on a bit of an apology tour, particularly because they know that I've been in a relationship with a black woman for 22 plus years. Been together almost 27 years. I got biracial children. I have in-laws that are black. I've got nieces and nephews that are black or they're biracial. And, throughout the course of my interactions with them in their communities, or when we've traveled or gone on vacation, I've seen that ugly head pop up again, that pretentiousness from certain people, that uncomfortableness, that awkwardness. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And when specifically, to go back to the question, when I saw what happened to George Floyd, um, my heart just broke. The man was clearly murdered,
Mm-hmm.
without prejudice. That man murdered him. And what I also got very angry about was the cowardice shown by the other officers by not intervening. So I'm gonna share a little something with you because I've been a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner for a long time. I can put somebody to sleep in 2 seconds. The man had his knee on his carotid artery. You're going out. You're not. That is, for any of us who practice that art, we know what that move does. And it was clearly, it was clearly evident this guy was aware of what he was doing. And when I saw that, I thought of my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, my nieces, my nephew, my children, my wife. And I'm like, how is it that we've gotten, and I say we've gotten, but more so, how is it that there's still people walking around that think that other folks who don't look like them are meant to be subjugated or ruled over? You know, I'm a bit of a child of God, and I kind of tend to believe God when he said, you guys are all created in my image and all of you are my children. So I'm thinking, well, either you believe God or you don't. And frankly, I believe God in that sense. But the truth of the matter is, it's always been woven into the fabrics of this country
Yes.
because of how this country was founded. One of the big things that's different now is the fact we have camera phones, which I'm
Mhm.
thankful for, because now it's bringing a lot of things into the light that people either didn't really grasp uh, that these activities were still happening, and that we had other Americans in this country that had a very different experience than what others would call, the white privilege piece. And somebody actually made a great comment to me when they tried to explain what white privilege is. It's, we're not saying, white folks, that your life hasn't been tough. We're not saying you haven't had your challenges and your own tribulations, but your skin color was not a part of that.
Right.
And I have to wholeheartedly agree. I've had my share of struggles. I've had my fair share of setbacks and failures and disappointments. But I had never at any given time felt that because of the genetic lottery that I somehow won in this country, that my skin tone was a part of that. And it's absolutely beyond the realm of comprehension to me that somehow other human beings are going to continue to be penalized and mistreated, simply because of the melatonin that's in their skin. It's to me, it should be a mental disorder.
So let me ask you this: being that you are raising your kids are biracial, but their race is black, how, especially in the South, how do you explain what happened, especially to your son? How did that go?
So yeah, that's a great question. So how do I explain it to them? With an open heart, and something I've told my kids, because I actually have relatives that are in law enforcement. I do have a half sister who's been in law enforcement for 20 years. I have a cousin who's in law enforcement. One is white, the other one is biracial, and I've actually spent time with them. And this is how I kind of started out the conversation, with my son and actually my daughter. My daughter she considers herself a bit of a rookie activist. She's a poli-sci major at Georgia State University. She's very, very involved in the community. Um, and what I explain to them is, I've seen this. I've seen this firsthand. I've been on ride-alongs. I've actually spent several days with both of my relatives. There is a special calling, I think, for somebody who wants to become involved in law enforcement. I think there's a special calling for those who naturally have that uh, um, uh, protectionist type of mentality. They have the concern for other people, the concern for their well-being and safety. And there are several law enforcement officers, and I can say for certain with my relatives, they go to work every day carrying their job with a tremendous amount of integrity. I'm here for the public. The shield that I wear is based on the public's trust and the faith that I am there to help them and to protect them. And they do that job day in and day out. It is a special calling. I know that I could not do that job. Um, but they have both admittedly said, including my sister, that there are people who have zero business being involved with that profession. And what irritates both of them, because we've had lots of conversations since George Floyd was murdered, and I said, "So what's the situation?" You always hear this, "Oh, we got a couple bad apples. We got a couple bad apples." And I love the way my sister put it. She's saying that if you're having a couple bad apples in law enforcement is like saying as a person, "Yeah, I got just a little bit of cancer." None of that is okay. You have to eradicate that
Mhm.
in its entirety. That is a profession that cannot afford that. In the same way Chris Rock would say, "Hey, you can't afford a okay pilot." You can't say, "Well, most of our pilots landed a plane." Okay, well, the other ones, well, what about them? That is one of those professions that you cannot have those types of folks. People call it bad cops. And what's also kind of discouraging, particularly for my sister, is that she knows that she has not moved up in the ranks over the years for different departments that she's worked for because she has filed internal affairs reports against certain officers for misconduct or for misappropriation or misuse of force. She said, "That's not how we build trust with our community. That's not how our community feels safe. When they call us, they need to know we're coming with our capes and we're here to help them." But these individuals that somehow either fly under the radar, get in, and more so, the ones that seem to be able to remain in that capacity puts the public in danger, as well as the majority of the officers that come to work every day with the heart of a leader servant for their public and their community. It says it is a detriment to both sides, and it comes with great cost. Um, so the conversations I've had with my kids is I've had to have the conversation about, listen, this is how you need to conduct yourself when you interact with a law enforcement agent, because you don't know what you're going to get. The possibility is you'll get somebody who's decent. That's the hope. Um, but the fact that you may have drawn the luck of getting somebody who's not supposed to really be doing that job, or who's had a super, super bad day, or who's on edge because they've just seen too much. I said, I hate to put this on you, but I want you to come home alive, and I want you to come home in one piece. And if something has been done wrong, I'm going to make sure that I'll make it my life's mission to make sure that justice is served. But I need you to come home alive.
That's the goal.
And that's the goal. I can work with you, but I need you to be mindful of your interactions. And it's not your job to be the one to de-escalate a situation. But if you have somebody who's taken on the oath and the badge of being a peacekeeper or a peace officer, and they don't seem like they want to be too peaceful, then I want to make sure you come home alive, and I need you to be the bigger person in that case. And that's the best I can do for them until we get some real change and real reform with inside our law enforcement agencies. Because again, that is a profession that has a very razor thin margin of error. And I think things have been too lax. I
Mhm.
think they need to go up the chain. I think they need to be looking at police chiefs. They need to be looking at DAs. They need to look at anybody who's giving cover to that gross misconduct and negligence, because that job cannot afford it. And quite honestly, the trust of the public can no longer be eroded. Otherwise, we're going to continue to repeat the same mistakes.
I agree. So Lauren, what he's saying is because he has a black son, and every black parent has had to have what we call the talk, where we
Mm-hmm.
had to sit down our kids and, hey, these are the things that you need to do or say or act when you're being approached by police officers, because like you said, you don't know what you're getting, but the goal is to come home or to arrive alive. The hope is that you can arrive alive. Sometime that doesn't happen, but that's what he's talking about. I've had to do it. I mean, every black parent has had to have that talk with their kids. So Tell me, you guys, is the because that's really hard, but it's the truth. It is the truth.
Yeah.
What do you think as allies? What can be done next to move this along? Now that everybody is pretty much woke,
Mm.
what do you think are the next steps?
I think, obviously from the events of the recent days is we need changes. We need changes in police reform. We need major police reform. We need to defund police. We don't need to be militarizing the police against peaceful protesters. And we need a change in our administration because just to share a personal story that happened this past week. It's not my story, and I won't reveal who it happened to, but it was a Black individual that my family, my husband, is very close to. Since Trump has made his tweets and basically, as many people have said, called open season on protesters and on Black people, she was driving to work very peacefully, and a truck pulled up next to her, and the man rolled down the window and was pointing a shotgun at her and said, when Trump gets reelected, I'm not going to say the word he used, but we're going to all start shooting you guys, basically. And just it's just not okay. Like, it's sickening to me. And I don't have kids yet, but once we are blessed with kids, I'm gonna make it my mission to make sure they grow up having those conversations and not being blind to it, not just saying like just to accept anyone of any race, but to also speak up and to be the people who will stand up for someone, because I think silence has been one of the deadliest things that's been going on. Is too many people are silent, too many people just let things happen, whether it's in a job situation or in the arts community or watching a cop murder a Black man. And our response should always be what's happening right now, should always be just complete, we're not taking this. This is not okay. This is not going to happen again. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure it doesn't happen again, rather than, oh, it's happening again. Because the countless names of people who have been shot or killed or just discriminated against because of their race is just it's insurmountable, and it's not okay. And we, using our privilege, and like Josh said, privilege doesn't mean we think our lives are easier, or we didn't grow up poor, we didn't grow up in the same social situation. It means we didn't grow up being afraid that someone was going to burst into our house and shoot us just because of our race, or see us walking down the street and shoot us just because of our race. We never had that fear. And it didn't really hit me until adulthood that my Black friends and family and coworkers and people I worked with in theater and film have that fear every day. And that's what makes me angry. And that's what needs to change, is that we with the privilege need to start speaking up, and seeing that happen now is just making me so proud. It's not enough yet, but I'm hoping that we are moving towards some kind of real reform and real change.
I agree. I totally agree. Um, I'm not going to keep you guys on. I do appreciate you guys just coming on and just giving me your perspective. Any final thoughts? Any final words?
Yeah, I've got a few actually, and I tell folks, I'm not a perfect human being by any means. I've made my mistakes and I've had my transgressions, uh, interacting with people, but it's never been for me. And again, and perhaps maybe I might be a little different breed of cat because of how I grew up, and again all the different cultures and ethnicities I was exposed to at a very early age. Um, there is a problem in this country, and there has been for quite some time. And as an American, I'm hoping that there is an opportunity for people to take a moment of some deep reflection, because fundamentally, I believe that the ideals, right, and the constructs with which this country was founded for, these aren't something that it's not a set and a forget. It's not okay. Well, we're going to write a piece of paper, everybody's going to sign it: Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, and automatically, okay, make it so, and then it becomes so. No, these are things that have to be lived, and these are things that have to be strived for, and they have to be maintained. And those constructs were put in place for a reason, because we are always going to have tyrants in our midst. We're always going to have those who feel that for some reason or other, their job is to subjugate or to dominate others for their own lust of power or control. That, unfortunately, is a very dark side of human nature that's been with us since the world's been turning. And I think the premise of reason why the country was founded with those constructs and those ideals was, it is something that we have to continue to collectively strive for. Um, a quick little side note: I've had several folks reach out to me on Facebook. I've got one friend who is of Italian descent, and he got a little sideways with me on a comment, and I had to kind of check him a little bit. It's like, hey, you might want to talk to your grandfather, your great grandfather, and great grandmother, and ask how Italian immigrants were treated when they came to this country, because they were looked upon as something lower than pond scum. And same thing with Irish Americans, and same thing with our Native Americans. I mean, again, I tell somebody, they said, well, the common denominator here is white people are the problem. Yeah, I can understand why somebody would say that, but really what I think it ultimately, the root of this is greed. It's greed. It's you have a collective mentality of some people that believe that somehow, some way, some shape, form, if they are superior to another, which couldn't be farther from the truth. And what we can do, we have to be vocal. We have to call it out. We have to bring those acts that are done in the dark into the light. And for some people, that's going to be really hard, because people are scared. To stand up and be counted, you have to risk something. You have to have your name known. You have to show your face. And you have to put yourself front and center. And all I know is, and I've been to a lot of different places on this planet where I was the minority several times. I never felt out of place or threatened, because I embraced, I think I could say it now, I embraced basically the brother and sisterhood of all men and women. Because, as my background, I got a whole little space thing going on. The last I checked, we're all we've got. There isn't any other planet we can get to. There's no other solar system we can live in. And as far as I know, we're the only thing living out here. So if one of us isn't free, none of us are free. And it's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And the truth of some of this may be a little too powerful for them, the reality of it. So overcoming denial, overcoming, oh, no, that's not as bad as you think. That's a pretty natural reaction for people when they see the real underbelly of it. And we have to challenge it. You cannot be afraid to fight it. So we need to be able to lock arms with one another. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what the outside is, we all bleed red. We all want the same things: peace, security, opportunity, love, affection. That's been the common denominator everywhere I've gone and all the people I've met. And we have a chance to get it right. And I will say that, to your point, Lauren, seeing all the different faces, all the different shades of folks coming out to say this is wrong. We won't stand for it. We won't tolerate it. We have to keep that up. And more so, once the fervor, the emotion, and all of the fever pitch has died down, we got to go to work. We've got to go to work. We've got to get ourselves educated. We have to be disciplined. We have to be organized. We have to infiltrate our court systems. We have to have more people who don't look like me applying for jobs in law enforcement. We need more people that don't look like me who are getting into legislative positions. Because I do believe this, Teresa, and I'm going to end this because, you know me, I can talk as the day is long. I think also what we're witnessing here is drowning man syndrome from the old guard. The world is changing. The demographics of this country are changing. We have had a man of color as a president for 2 terms. And I think that rattled the old system, the old foundation to its core. So now to them, I think they see this as a fire sale. And they're going to try tooth and nail to hang on to whatever grip of power they've got. But the reality is change is going to come. And we're going to be a part of it because there are more of us than there are of them.
Agreed. Well said. Well said. Lauren, do you have any final words?
Yes. So like I've been saying, I think the most important thing to take from this as someone who cannot speak for Black voices or, can't lead the chant is to be aware, be willing to grow, be willing to learn. Like Josh said, I've made mistakes. I've had thoughts in the past that now I look back and they were racist. And I've learned and I've grown from that. Even every day now, when more and more injustices are happening, I'm constantly wanting to learn and grow. So to anyone who's in the same position and who cannot, because for my health reasons, I cannot be out there on the streets protesting as much as I wish I could because of COVID. Just do everything you can to be an ally. Listen, educate yourself, and speak up. Do not let people get away with racism anymore. Do not be afraid to speak out against people you were afraid to call out before, because it's gone way beyond that. We don't matter right now. What matters is educating other people and hoping that maybe they'll learn and grow too, because that's the only way we're going to move forward. So I guess my best advice and everything to take from this is just keep listening, keep watching, and don't stop trying to move the movement forward. Do what you can. Just because I'm at home doesn't mean I can't help. I can help educate. I can help educate myself. I can help educate others that maybe are struggling with what they can do. Pass information along. Figure out how you can help the protesters on the front line. Just don't think you can't do anything because you're just an ally. Like, we need to be allies right now because we have that privilege. And I think it's very important, like Josh said, to see people of all ages, colors, creeds out there on the street finally saying we won't stand for this anymore. And we can't stop saying it until the changes happen. And even when they do, again, like Josh said, that's when we still need to go to work and make the changes stick and make them happen. Because we had the civil rights movement, but obviously over the decades, we have to do it again. We're in the same situation. Like, we have to speak for our brothers and sisters on this planet. We're all people. We all deserve the same treatment. We all deserve the same love. We all deserve the same feeling of security that we as white people have been privileged to have, where I don't feel like my door is going to be broken down and someone's going to shoot me because they mistake me for someone else because of the color of my skin. And every Black person on this planet needs to feel that way. And we can't stop until that happens. So listen, educate yourself, and just be there. And just know, I was just watching an Instagram video before we came on of Black actress who's been very active right now in the protests and very angry, rightfully so, saying, don't speak for us either. We don't have no right to speak for the Black community. We have no right to accept apologies on their behalf. If you see someone being racist on Facebook and you call them out and they apologize, it's not our place to accept that apology. They just need to make the change, and they need to be there as an ally like we are. And I think that was really profound and really important to think about, because there's so many things we can learn every day of how to be a better ally. So just don't stop educating yourself, and don't stop listening and learning. I think that's the most important thing right now, and don't stop speaking out.
I agree. I said, someone asked, what can we do? Is, like you said, listen, actively listen, empathize, knowing that we are all human, and act. And I think that's the best thing that we all can do. And just remember, we all are human. Like you said, everybody's blood is red. Everybody's blood is red. We all bleed. So, and I really, 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 I can't express how much I appreciate you guys talking with me. And I don't know. Let's see how this goes. Let's make that change.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, guys.
Thank you.
We had an amazing show today, and I really want to thank my guests, Lauren and Josh, for having the courage to come on the show and tell us their thoughts. So if you have any questions for Lauren or Josh, please send an email to info@terradomeent.com. That's info@terradomeent.com, and they will make a video answering all your questions. You guys be safe. Until next time, this is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. Salute.